Hello and welcome. My name is April Showen, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's webinar is all about helping you prepare for what we call our financial storms. Now, these are unexpected things that come your way that really can throw off even the best laid financial plans. Now, this is not a doom and gloom session. This is more about gaining control, getting clarity, and building a plan that helps you face uncertainty with confidence. And so whether you're just starting off on your financial journey or you're getting close to retirement, this session is really designed to give you practical, actionable steps to help you when we start thinking about financial storms coming our way. Now, I think it's a little funny because I plan my calls, my sessions, my topics months and months in advance. I've got usually like my next 3 to 4 months planned. So when I planned in June to do a webinar on how to weather a financial storm and managing your finances during a crisis, I did not plan that the US would have bombed Iran the weekend before, right? So the timing of all that just kind of happened, but just know I planned these things so far in advance, and a little bit of irony there with some things that are happening geopolitically. And hopefully the next time I do this talk and session that there won't be any other geopolitical issues going on. But that is one of the things that we want to talk about, right? Like what happens? Those are those financial disruptions that come our way. That could be war. It could be like we had COVID in 2020, some sort of like economic downturn. These can also be personal things that happen. Maybe we get sick, we lose a spouse, we have to take time out of work to take care of a family member, we lose a job, right? There are a lot of things that can happen that can disrupt our plans. And we may not be able to prepare and plan for everything, but there are things that we can do to make our financial plans be more resilient. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Now, we work with a lot of people who are getting close to retirement and they're trying to make smart, confident decisions with their money. This is a lot of people who work for the state of Florida, people over 50. I also work with obviously clients in their 30s and 40s who also want to make sure that they're all doing the right things with their money. And most of the people we meet with, they're not struggling because they made bad decisions. They're struggling because they're overwhelmed, right? Our financial system is complicated. You have a lot of options out there. There's a ton of information out there, right? The market feels uncertain. There's no clear roadmap on what to do next. And that's where we come in. Our job is to simplify the process and guide you through those key decisions so you know where you stand, what's possible, how do you protect what you've built so hard to build, right? And that's what today's session is going to be about. How do you prepare for uncertainty? How do you protect your finances and build a plan that works no matter what storms come your way? So let's get into it. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what a financial crisis really is. Sometimes it's not what you think it is. We're going to go through a preparation framework. Think of it like a hurricane checklist for your money. And we're going to dive into some fundamentals like emergency funds, investment strategies, spending plans. And we're going to wrap up with what does a confident financial plan look like and how do you make sure that you have one? Understanding a financial crisis and how to recognize financial storms. A financial crisis can be global, like a recession, war, COVID, inflation spike. It can also be personal, job loss, health issues. I want to tell you about a client of mine that a few years ago, she had to retire early, a few years earlier than she planned to help take care of her mother who was having health issues. And it happened very suddenly. Now, emotionally, it was very hard for her because of what she was going through, but also financially, it had ripple effects. She was retiring from the state of Florida, and because she had to retire early, her pension was now lower than expected. She was in drop, so now her drop account was a lot lower than she was planning it on being. She had to stop contributing to her retirement investment accounts, so she didn't have as much saved. And she was also working on paying off some debt before she retired. Now, none of that was in her plan, but we worked together to adjust the strategy. And that's the point of this, that life is going to throw you curveballs. We know that. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And so if we can recognize some of these, maybe even some signs that can help you, and even just having a plan that's adaptable, that's going to help you have more confidence and not panic. And just like we track storms with radars and forecasts, you can track your own financial health. And you don't have to know everything, but you do have to be aware and proactive. And the common theme with financial storms, it's not if they happen, it's when. And it's how prepared you are for when they do. Most people panic because they weren't prepared. But when you have a plan, you don't have to panic. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, this is not true for every financial storms, but sometimes there can be warning signs. So if we can understand what a financial crisis is, if we can spot some of those early warning signs, then it can help us be prepared better, right? The earlier we recognize them, the more options we have. So let's think about this for a few minutes. Here are some common early warning signs, especially on like a global side. If we see a lot of market volatility, rising inflation, interest rate hikes, increasing unemployment, those are all things that can point to globally or even locally, more think of the US economy having some type of financial storm like a recession. Think back to the Great Recession of '08. On the personal side, if we see that we're having higher credit card balances, we're dipping into savings, maybe we're not able to save at all, that should be a sign that we need to pause and take a look at what's happening. Or emotionally, if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, you're not making financial decisions because you're putting it off, that sometimes is your gut telling you that it needs attention. So if we look out for some of these warning signs, we can get ahead of it and we can be better prepared. And if you're not sure what your own warning signs might be, or whether if you're already there, this is where we can help you. I'd recommend like a focus session is a great way to get clarity without judgment. Most people are just relieved to know where they stand. But in our focus sessions, we talk more about, which we're going to talk more at the end of today's call on how to do that. But we can talk through like what are some of those warning signs that you should be looking out for. Now, how do we prepare for a financial storm? I want to use a hurricane as a metaphor. Here I am in Florida. Obviously, hurricane season, we're very used to it. And we know what to do when a storm is coming, right? We've dealt with them before. We stock up on supplies. We make sure our insurance is in check. We pay attention to the Weather Channel and the news media to know what's happening. We know if we need to evacuate, where to go, right? So we know how to handle if a hurricane's coming our way. Well, we can take that same approach for our finances. So I'm going to walk through this metaphor thinking about prepping for a hurricane and how do we prep from a financial planning standpoint. So the first thing is your emergency kit. Now in your finances, your emergency fund is going to be like your emergency storm kit. It gives you access to essentials like cash when you can't rely on normal income or you need to cover an unexpected expense. And just like you wouldn't want to run out of water in a storm, you don't want to run out of liquidity, out of cash during a financial disruption. So that's where your emergency fund comes in. Having an evacuation plan. Your financial plan is your evacuation route. When a storm hits, you need to know where you're headed and how you'll get there. A good financial plan maps up how you're going to handle different scenarios. Think job loss, market downturns, health events, retirement, so you're not scrambling in the moment. This is something we help our clients with. We call it stress testing it. So if we think about someone maybe getting ready for retirement, yeah, let's stress test it. Sure, your plan looks great today when everything's going wonderful, but what about if we had a market correction and the market's down 20%? How is your plan going to handle that? What if you have a health event? What if something happens and you need care, you or your spouse? Can your plan handle that? We want to know how we're going to go into those situations before they happen. That's where I find a lot of people have stress when it comes to their money, is things pop up and then they don't know how they're going to address them. So having a plan for those things. So we can say, oh, nope, we already prepared for that. Like the market this year. The market's been all over the place this year. Most of my clients were like, hey, nope, we're good. We've been planning for this because we know it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And is your plan resilient enough to handle it? Taking a look at your insurance coverage, right? Insurance coverage helps you recover from physical damage. Think like your homeowner's insurance helps you rebuild after physical damage. On the personal side, you've got life insurance, disability insurance, right? That can help property and casualty. Obviously, that falls under that homeowner's insurance as well, but helps you recover financially when life doesn't go your way. So making sure that you've got the proper coverage. And sometimes we can self-insure, and there are other times when we want to transfer that risk. So making sure that we're analyzing that. You know, insurance, analogy I like to use for insurance is like needing an umbrella when it's raining, but you can only buy the umbrella when the sun is shining. Think about that for a second. If I left the office today and I got into a car accident on the way home, I cannot call my property and casualty agent and say, hey, I just got into a car accident. Can you bump up my liability coverage? It doesn't work that way, right? Same way as like if a storm is coming, there's a point in time when homeowners insurance companies, they'll pause you being able to add coverage or make changes to it. It's the same thing in our financial world. These are things that we have to have in place before something happens. Now, securing valuables. In a storm, right, we're going to make sure that we don't have things in our yard that are going to blow away and make sure that everything's like in good order. In our financial life, we want to protect our long-term goals. So we want to make sure our retirement accounts are allocated properly. We want to make sure estate plans are up to date. We want to make sure we have key documents that we can are accessible, making sure beneficiaries are up to date, right? These are all things that we can do to secure our financial valuables. We seek professional guidance. So in a storm, in a hurricane, we rely on meteorologists. I can't even say that word. But we focus, we watch the Weather Channel, right? We want to know, we want to stay up to date on like, where's the hurricane going? You know, what category is it going to be? And this is where financial professionals come in to help you look at the data, help you adjust course when necessary, because you don't have to figure this out alone. We also want to do continuous monitoring. During a hurricane, right? We're checking the radar, we're listening to updates, we're adjusting as the storm evolves, and your financial plan needs that same level of attention. It is not a set it and forget it strategy. It needs to be reviewed and refined regularly. Preparation doesn't stop the storm, but it puts you in a position of strength. You don't panic, you act, and that makes all the difference. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier that is a crucial tool to help you weather the storm is an emergency fund. So what is it? Why is it important? What do we do with it? So an emergency fund is a pool of money set aside to cover unexpected expenses. It can help with a job loss, a medical emergency, unexpected home repairs, right? Your emergency fund is going to allow you to stay afloat. Now, we recommend, so how much should you have in your emergency fund? Now, this is going to be different for every person. We recommend keeping at least 6 months worth of expenses in liquid savings. But I'm going to ask you a question. What's your happy number? How much do you want to keep in savings at all times? It's different for everybody. A lot of my clients who are near retirement or in retirement, guess what? They have very low expenses. So having 6 months worth of expenses in savings for emergency fund isn't enough for them. Maybe they want to keep $50,000 liquid in cash at all times. So yes, we can have this rule of thumb of 6 months of expenses, But then we got to ask the question about what's going to make you happy though? What's going to make you feel comfortable? What's going to help you sleep at night knowing you've got access to that money? It's cash, it's liquid, you can get your hands on it. You don't have to worry about the market. So important. I've got a client of mine that is he's in the tech world, and he usually works for like tech startups as a developer. And it's a very volatile position because he works for these tech startups and sometimes they go under. So he might be out of a job for 6 months, 9 months, a year at a time. And then he's reemployed, right? So when we were going through this, I was like, absolutely not. We cannot have 6 months worth of expenses in savings for you. You need to keep at least a year because of the nature of his job and how long it takes for him to find a position. And that happened after our work together. He did end up losing his job and he was out of work for about 6 months and then went back to work. So he was able to use his emergency fund. He wasn't stressed about it. And then when he went back to work, he built his emergency fund back up. So it really is going to come down to everybody's individual situation. Now, where should you keep it? There's lots of options: checking, savings, CDs, money markets, cash value life insurance, right? So you got lots of options of where to keep it. Where you don't want to is in an investment account or a retirement account. You don't want your emergency fund to be down 20% because of the market and you need it for something. So make sure it's something that's not going to be volatile like the market. Now, I talk with all of my clients about creating a spending plan. So let's talk about what is a spending plan, what is it not, and why is it important? And this is important for clients who are in their working years, clients in their 30s and 40s. This is important for clients who are going into retirement. I am not a budget person. I don't believe in budgets. I think they feel too restrictive. I don't think that we stick to them very well. A budget to me is like a very restrictive diet that we maybe stick to for a few days and then we order a big pizza. I don't know about you, but at least that's what I do. So, and I think budgets are the same way. So we don't want a budget. This isn't about being restrictive. It's about just being intentional with our money, knowing where our money is going, and just being purposeful, right? Deciding on purpose where your money goes. So what I recommend on a spending plan is take a look back at the last 3 months of spending. Don't judge it, just observe it. And ask the question, does this reflect my priorities? Is this how I want to be spending my money? And if not, what changes can I make? This is going to allow you to have guilt-free spending. Everybody wants guilt-free spending. And it's going to help you actually even weather those changes in income, unexpected expenses, big life transitions, is at least having an idea around your spending. It doesn't have to be down to the penny. We just want it like in the ballpark. Maybe we want to just kind of round numbers, estimated. This is about what we spend on a monthly basis. And then we want to look at what is discretionary spending and what's essential spending. So essentials are like, how do I keep the lights on, right? Mortgage, rent, utilities, groceries. How do I live my life? And discretionary spending are things we enjoy, but maybe not necessary. Could be eating out, entertainment, shopping, things along those lines. The discretionary spending, those are things that we can cut back when times are tough. Doesn't mean you have to cut out everything, but it is helpful to know what's your wiggle room. Is there some things that you could trim? And if so, what are you going to do with that? It's good to know, look at your income and your spending plan to say, hey, do I have a surplus? Do I have a deficit? And a lot of my clients, if they go through this, they do find things where there are inefficiencies, I'm going to call them. There's holes in the bucket. One of my clients didn't realize she was spending $300 a month on DoorDash. Right? There's nothing wrong with DoorDash, but she was like, April, I didn't know. Because it's just easy, right? So then she looked at it, it's like, oh, I don't have to do that. Now she's still going to order DoorDash, of course, but maybe she's just more intentional about it now. Maybe it just makes her stop and think. And then then she can do other things with that money. Those can go to other goals. So, when I'm thinking about this, like emergency fund or creating a spending plan, The challenge I see is that we know we should have these things, but we haven't done it yet. And that's where we can come in to help clients, because you don't have to figure this out alone. This is what we help people create real world, flexible strategies based on their actual lifestyle and goals. And it doesn't have to be hard. We can make it easy. But it is good to have those kind of things, especially when thinking about preparing for some type of financial storm. Now let's get into protecting investments and retirement accounts. And some of this, listen, you're going to say, April, I already know that, but I think it's so good for us to hear it again. The first thing is diversification is key. We always hear this, right? Diversification. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket, right? We don't want to have all of our investments in the same type of asset. We want to spread it out across different investment types so your whole portfolio, your whole account isn't moving in the same direction when the markets shift. Think about this year, the market volatility. We want to have things that are going to be like a hedge against the market going down, right? We want things that are going to go up when that happens, so we're not experiencing so much of that loss. One thing I talk about with clients is, do we need to stay the course or do we need to make strategic changes? We hear a lot, don't panic, stay the course. And for a lot of people in a lot of situations, that is true, and that's good advice. But the reality is your course might need changing. It might need updating. We need to look at your goals, your timeline, your circumstances. And we also need to look at your investments, right? If it's a sinking ship, when do you want to get out of it? So your investments need to adjust over time, and strategic changes can help you avoid unnecessary losses or take advantage of opportunities. So I think we don't need to be making changes for the sake of changes, right? But we do need to be strategic. We do need to be tactical, but we don't just need to be an ostrich and have our head in the sand and not look at it, right? So when do we need to stay the course, and then when do we need to make changes? Look at your current trajectory. Ask this question. If I continue on this path, am I going to reach my goals? We have clients all the time with retirement projections, income analysis, investment reviews. And sometimes some small shifts now can help us reach our goals faster. It can help us avoid big problems later. It can help us put us in a better situation, right? So ask that question again. If you continue doing what you're doing today, if you stay on your path, will you reach your goals? Let's say you want to retire in 5 years. If you made no changes, like, are you going to be able to do that in 5 years, or are there some tweaks that are needed? For most people, tweaks are needed, right? And so it's understanding kind of where we are today, and then are there some things that we can do to make it better? Knowing when to make changes. Timing is everything. You don't want to be reactive, but you don't want to wait too long. So it's like this fine balance, right? This is when it's really good to have a process in place. And when I recommend that you review your plan at least annually, that becomes very crucial. Look at it when you have big events that are happening globally and deciding, do I need to make changes now? And if I don't, when am I going to make changes? I had a client I met with last year, and we were reviewing his investment account and deciding if we were going to make some changes. And I recommend, I say, hey, look, there's still a lot of uncertainty about what's happening with interest rates and the Fed. And so why don't we circle back in 6 months, and so we can have a better understanding of what's happening with interest rates, because that's really going to impact the bonds in your portfolio. And we can decide then, do we need to stay the course or make changes, right? So if we're not making changes today, when are we going to make changes if we need to? This is really where the importance of professional guidance comes in, because it's hard to make objective decisions when your emotions are involved. I deal with this too. I look at my own personal financial situation and I think I should be doing X, Y, and Z. Like, for example, I think I should be paying more down on my mortgage. And I literally have to say, now, April, what would you tell yourself if you were a client? And my mortgage interest rate is 3.125. It's very low. If it was a client sitting across the table from me, I would tell her, no, do not pay a penny extra on your mortgage. Instead, put that money over in a separate account and build it up. And sure, if you get to the point where you can pay off the mortgage in one sweep, go for it. But I would tell her not to pay it off early. So I have to kind of play that game with myself to take my own advice. And that's really why working with a planner, someone who can step back, look at the data, offer recommendations, is so valuable. And it's not really just recommendations. I'm gonna say something else here. It's actually getting clarity first. That's the first place we start. We don't start with recommendations. Oh, you should be invested in this. You should buy this product. We start with, what is it that you want? What do you want your money doing for you? What's the job of your money? Why is this important? We have to start with the goal, with getting clarity on what you want. And then we look at what you're doing and say, is this the right thing or not? Right? We met with some new clients a few weeks ago, and they met with an advisor several years ago who, the first meeting, started selling them a product, actually several products, to the point where the wife was like, I got so overwhelmed in that meeting that we walked out and we didn't do anything. And we haven't done anything. And that was years ago. So, fast forward to us meeting a few weeks, and we didn't know that at the time that they'd been in that situation. But we started off asking, what do you want? Do you want to retire one day? If so, when? What are some big goals and dreams that you have for your money? What are your concerns? What are your challenges when it comes to money? And really understanding what is it they want. And then we look at what you got and how it's working. And are those things going to help you achieve those goals? Okay? And that's what is really good about working with someone. So whether it doesn't have to be us, it's us, someone else, but you don't have to navigate these storms alone. We've helped hundreds of clients navigate these challenges. And our job is to help you avoid unnecessary risk and missed opportunities, because you shouldn't have to guess. You shouldn't have to just hope it's all going to work out. Hope is not a strategy. If you want a second opinion on your investment setup or how you currently are positioned, this is a great time to schedule a focus session. And we're going to talk about that at the end on how to do that. Now, what are the keys to building a confident financial plan? One that works, not just when the sun is shining, but when the forecast is uncertain. The first thing you want to have a plan that works in all seasons. A good financial plan isn't built for perfect conditions. It's built to withstand volatility, getting sick or hurt, job changes, life transitions. Think of it like a house being built on a strong foundation. And the role of professional guidance, so just like a contractor would help make sure that your house is up to code, a financial professional helps make sure that your plan is built soundly. They can help you see things you might miss and guide you through key decisions. Stress test your financial plan. We walk clients through this all the time. What happens if you retire early? What if the market drops 20%? What if healthcare cost spikes? You want to know that your plan holds up in all of these scenarios. Continuous improvement and tweaking. Life changes. Your plan should too. We recommend regular reviews to adjust your strategy as needed. Think of it kind of like tuning up your car before a road trip, right? You want to make sure that you're on the right path. Don't set it and forget it. Prepare for life's unexpected events. Whether that's a health issue, a family need, job changes, maybe an opportunity, a flexible plan is going to make it easier for you to respond with confidence, not fear. Planning ahead gives you options, and that's really what financial confidence is all about. Most people want a plan like this, but they haven't been able to pull all the pieces together, and that's exactly what we help our clients do. Now, as we've been going through this today and talking about how do we understand what a financial crisis is, how do we build financial resilience, and those keys to having a confident financial plan. If you're unsure about your plan, or you want a second pair of eyes, I invite you to book a complimentary focus session. Here's how that works. It's a 30-minute call where we're going to help you get clarity on your financial goals. We're going to identify any roadblocks, and we're going to pinpoint any opportunities you may not have seen. You're going to walk away with some action steps, some tweaks that you can implement right away, with or without us. And if it makes sense to continue working together, we're going to talk about what that looks like. And if not, you still get to leave the call with that clarity and having some tweaks. So there's a few ways you can book a call. You can scan the QR code, and that's going to take you right to my calendar. You can book a 30-minute call. You can also call our office, 850-562-3000, and let them know you heard me speak and you'd like to schedule a focus session. Again, that phone number is 850-562-3000. And I recommend while we're on the call or right after, go ahead and do that. If you're interested, if you want to book a call, do it while you're thinking about what's top of mind. I don't know about you, but I can be so guilty of having something on my to-do list and just not getting to it yet. I called someone yesterday that I met with a few months ago to just check in, see how things were going, see if they were ready to move forward their retirement plan. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. You've literally been on my to-do list for weeks now, and I just haven't had a chance," right? So we all get busy and life gets in the way. And there is a cost to waiting, right? There's clarity. Most people don't fail financially because they made a bad decision. It's because they postpone making decisions. And the biggest obstacle is inaction. So don't wait until you're in the middle of a storm to say, "Hey, I need to figure out if this works." Let's test it now. Let's strengthen it. Let's build confidence now while we can. And sometimes clients feel some obstacles to getting this financial clarity. Sometimes people say, "I already have an advisor." Wonderful. Most of my clients do. My goal isn't to disrupt what you already have. It's more about how can we add value. There can be emotional barriers, right? Sometimes we don't really want to face our financial situation. I can't tell you how many times clients have said, "Ooh, I'm worried for what you're going to tell me today." We're worried what it might reveal. Listen, we are here to support and guide you. I literally have a sign in my office that says it's a no judgment zone. I've seen it all. There's nothing you can say that's going to shock me. And this is a place where we can talk about your goals and your challenges. And if there are problems, when do we want to talk about it? The more we bring that out into the light, the less scary it is, right? So getting through some of that. And perceived cost, right? They might be worried about, what's this going to cost me? Our initial talks are always at no charge. We take the time to understand your unique situation. We're going to give you some insights, and then we'll decide together if it makes sense for us to move forward and work together in some capacity. And if we decide to do that, of course, we're going to be very transparent with you so you understand exactly how much our fees are for planning. We have different plan options, so we can discuss different pricing options and make sure that aligns with kind of where you are and what you need. But again, those initial talks are always no charge. So let me share a quick story, I think, that really drives this home about how important it is for planning. One of my clients always thought she had plenty of time to plan and prepare for retirement. She was focused on building her career, and retirement just felt something that was really far in the future. But as she got older, time, as it does, slips away, and she started to feel uneasy about it. And so when we finally sat down to review everything, she realized she was behind. All of her investments were tied up in her 401k, and she wasn't saving enough. To compensate, she was taking on way too much risk, hoping that the market would help make up the difference. But that's a dangerous strategy. And it only works if your timing is perfect, but most of the time it's not. And what really stuck with me is one time she said, I wish I had started this 5 years earlier. But here's the thing. We had actually been introduced 5 years earlier. She was introduced and referred to me by another client, and we had some initial conversations, but she said the timing wasn't right for her then. So fast forward 5 years later, and she was ready to get together and roll up her sleeves and get to work. And you know what? She's going to be fine. She's going to be totally fine. And we were able to course correct and build that plan together. But I want you to think about the difference those 5 years could have made for her, right? She could have had more flexibility. Maybe she would have been on track to retire at 65 instead of 70. Or maybe she would have just had more freedom to spend money how she wants to today. And that's the power sometimes of taking action before you even feel ready, right? We know how to help because we've done it for people just like you. And if you're still watching this, I think that tells me that you care. You know, you're smart, you're motivated, but you just need the right guide to help you walk this road. So here's what I'd recommend is your next step would be to book a focus session. We'll sit down for 30 minutes. We'll talk about your goals. We'll map out some strategy, some tweaks that work for you. No pressure. Just get some clarity. You've already taken a great first step by being here today. Let's make sure that this moment is where the momentum really begins, right? So that next step for you would then be to book that focus session. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and then I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye now.